You're good.
Drew, Jeff, Vinny, what's up, guys? How's everyone's day going so far?
Really good.
Yeah, going well.
Three absolute killers.
Heck yeah, doing absolutely amazing. Drew, you're looking good, bro. Jeff, you're looking good. Every week that passes, everybody's just Zoom profile jawline becomes a few percentage points more chiseled than the week before. It's cool just watching it happen in real time and like mentally comparing just what everybody used to look like. You guys are looking freaking sharp.
Drew's
You as
eyes
well,
look
Gabe.
bluer.
You're looking good, Gabe.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I'm trying. Heck yeah. Do all of you guys use Zoom for work?
Yeah,
Yes.
Google Meet, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Google Meet, that communist version. That's cool. But still a video chat system, I guess.
It is.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I used to have. We used to have one of these members of our sales team who he was pretty athletic. He almost played professional rugby, but he was super skinny. And David Jacob, our sales coach, literally told him like it was a requirement for him to like take up more of the camera and keep the like laptop or computer like close to him so he didn't look so small and puny. But the Zoom profile, it's a real thing, advice from our sales coach. So love to see that you guys are improving that. One of those intangible metrics, intangible benefits that comes with the program. Cool. All right, guys. We're gonna get into it today. Hopefully, a few more guys trickle in. I'm gonna be dropping some value today, just based on like some reflection I've done over like if you can consider this to be like the default Kings like longitudinal study of success, so to speak, right? The entire goal of this program is to achieve permanent success, right? Lock in your default actions, change the very fiber of who you are, and keep the fat off forever, right? That's why people come here. That's why people join this, the entire goal. And we've been doing this for about 4 years now. 4 years to the day, probably someday this month. I don't have the exact date actually noted, but it was sometime like right after we graduated from our freshman year of high school. So we're about 4 years to the day. And I've noticed that with the people who stick to it for like a year plus, right, where I can follow up with them, I can text them at any time and see how they're doing and they're crushing it, right, or they're doing better than they ever have before, no matter how long they worked with us. I noticed three commonalities, and then I also noticed one huge commonality between any of the guys who have ever had to like call us up again, because there have been a handful of those guys who, like, let's say they end their program 2 months down the road, they're like, hey, guys, let's do this one more round. And I wanted to highlight those things for you because these things that I've identified, I think, are absolutely required non-negotiables when it comes to maintaining this healthy lifestyle. They're common between the successful people. These are three things that I do at an extremely high level, that Joey does as at an extremely high level. And I think if you guys can master them, truly, like, you guys can sustain your results for life. And that's the entire goal. So I'm going to dive into that stuff today. Definitely a great call today to take some notes and just make sure that you have these three things as a main focus for you, no matter where you are timeline wise in your journey and changing your default actions and becoming all that you can be physically. So number one is it is the first thing we teach, and that is by no mistake whatsoever, because it's the most foundational, most influential thing in regards to any action that we take, not let alone our health actions, right? And that is your identity, right? Your self-identity. So what I've seen happens is a lot of people will change their self-identity from a point of going from below average to average, right? Like that's where a lot of people start the program, is their identity as this person who is capable of digging themselves out of a hole, right? This person who was no longer lazy, this person who was no longer overweight, this person who was no longer, fat piece of shit who binge ate on food. And what happens is a lot of people forget to continually update their identity, continually update their self-identity, right? So I want this to be something that you guys take away, is that that amazing self-identity that you guys wrote down on day one, that should be something that you continue to update, you continue to add to, and you continue to build on. Because a lot of guys will get stuck in the plateau once they reach that previously determined self-identity, right? And if that identity stays as the person who's just not below average, then you'll stay at average. Does that kind of make sense, y'all? Cool.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. This is something that I had to do in a massive way for our business, for my business goals, right? You can imagine, like, in the beginning, when we first started business, 19-year-old Jack Bly and Gabe Pluguez, we just wanted to, like, literally our goal was to not be poor, right? Like, our goal was to not be in poverty and be like eating crap out of the gutter. That was our goal. And we reached that, but continuing to look at our decisions through the lens of somebody who is just not poor wouldn't have served us and wouldn't have propelled us to be able to reach the heights of the business that we've built up to this point, right? We had to shift that mindset from men who were just no longer struggling with our business to men who had this thriving, successful business. And now, if you listen to the language in which Joey and I speak about our business, Drew, you were on that cruise with us and we were talking about our dreams and our eulogies, that language has shifted from build the business to have a successful business to have this business that is capable of conquering parts of the world, right? And we need that identity shift and we need that language shift if we wish to continue progressing. So as you guys progress, update that self-identity. Make sure it is very clear in your mind that it's not just digging yourself out of the hole, but it's reaching new heights. It's becoming above average. Make sure you're switching that language from, get rid of the belly fat to get jacked, right? To be a machine, right? Not just be functionally strong, but to be a machine. Use that higher level, more elite level language so that you can continue to progress forever. Does that make sense, guys? Beautiful. It matters so much, right? So that is the big thing, is continuing to update the language of that self-identity, never losing track of that and never getting complacent with it. Wherever your self-identity stops is where your progress will stop. And again, make sure that you're very happy with that when you do decide to stop. But a lot of guys kind of stop a little bit too early there, right? They kind of shoot themselves short, so to speak. The second thing that I think is absolutely fundamental, again, whether you're with us for the rest of your life or I never see you again after this Zoom call, the thing that needs to be in place 100% is your structure for the two basic things that need to be in place physically. So that's structure for your nutrition, structure for your training. I've never seen somebody actually sustain their results by just kind of shooting it in the dark and having no game plan. Okay. The reason why is because when it comes to the physical transformations that take place with our body, whether that's with training or nutrition, what's intuitive is maintaining baseline health. Okay. So you can make intuitive decisions that are going to keep you healthy, that will keep you from being overweight, that will keep you from dying early, right? You can train hard, you can eat healthy, and that's fantastic. But the decisions you need to make to continue progressing past just baseline health are not intuitive. Are you guys following me here?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Cool. There's a very distinct difference. There's a fine line between training and eating to be healthy and training and eating to continue progressing physically, right? This is the whole discussion of, if somebody were to ask you, is squatting 400 pounds healthy? Like, is that for your health? Technically, on paper, there probably are no real tangible health benefits to continue progressing past like squatting 225 pounds for 10 reps or something like that. That's probably going to prepare you for 99.99% of any situation in your actual life that's going to require muscular strength. But if you wish to continue progressing, then you need to have a game plan, because it's going to be against human nature to do things that don't get you to that healthy state, right? You need that game plan to almost force yourself to continue progressing. Does that make sense, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful. Same thing intuitively when it comes to eating, right? We can all eat very intuitively to maintain our body weights, especially when you have really healthy default actions. But the leaner that you get and the higher level that you get in terms of your body composition, again, the more you kind of start to go on the other side of fighting against your intuition, right? Because once you're below, let's say between 10 to 15% body fat, that's kind of like the ideal, like perfect level of body fat for everything to be functioning properly, hormonally, for everything to be at baselines between like 10 to 15% body fat for men. Once you get to a point where you reach like 10% body fat and you want to continue progressing, it doesn't actually benefit your health to continue getting leaner than that. Do you guys hear what I'm saying? Right? It doesn't actually make you healthier to go sub like 15 to 10% body fat. And what that means is you intuitively are not going to make decisions that put your body in a state that it doesn't need to be in, because it doesn't need to be below 10% body fat. But if you want to continue progressing past that point, you can put in place that structure that forces you to progress past that point. Does that make sense, guys? Awesome. 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 Beautiful. Last thing that is absolutely non-negotiable. And if anything, guys, this might be the most important one. I don't know if I can really rank these three from top to bottom. But if I had to, I might pick this one. And the reason that I'm going to pick this one is because this is the one out of the three that I've seen progress the most in my own personal life, that I don't see ever decreasing in terms of its value in my life, right? I can see myself getting to a point with my training and my nutrition where I'm truly happy to maintain, where I don't really desire progressing much more. I can see myself continuing to increase my identity to a point where, man, it's pretty solid right now. And it's just kind of a matter of time until I meet that identity. But this one, I don't see ever decreasing. This one, I don't see ever decreasing in importance in my life. And what this third one is that male accountability, right? Male accountability that I was talking about in the post earlier this morning. Over the course of this last year, over the course of the last multiple years of my life, the level of male accountability that I've had in my life has only increased exponentially. Yesterday, I hosted a lunch at my house with 10 guys from around the world that I've met over the last year to 2 years. Joey was one of them. Matt Moore was one of them. Jeremy Newsom, who hosted the Nashville retreat with us, was one of them. And his business partner, Matt DeLong, who Drew met, was one of them. Andre Heikal, who was on the last retreat, was one of them. His business partner, Christian, was one of them. And I was sitting there on my couch just looking at all these people who were in my home. And it took a while for it to hit me how powerful the men in my life were, the men in my life where I surrounded myself were, right? Like, just if we look at net worth in my living room yesterday between all those men, like that number itself was astronomical, right? Just on a net worth standpoint, as you're kind of running the numbers with guys like Mr. Newsom, guys like Matt DeLong, and all these other amazing young business owners. When you look at the scale of all those men in terms of their spiritual health, how close they are to God. I mean, those were some of the most spiritually connected individuals that I've ever encountered in my life, all, again, sitting on the couch in the living room, having lunch after church. Physically, we had multiple people in that room who were elite endurance athletes, people who had competed in strongman competitions, myself and Joey. In every single area of life, every man around me is so excellent. And it hit me that the level of excellence of the men around me will never decrease, and it'll only be something that continues to level up. So I think it's something we have to prioritize. I think it's something that has to be a huge, huge focus of ours. And I actually think that as we update the default action installation system, which we're going to be doing sometime in the next few months here, which all of you guys will get, of course, one of the main things that we're going to teach is the skill of literally building relationships with other powerful men in your life, because it is that important, right? So I want that to be something you guys continue to prioritize, and something that you put on your power list. This is something that I put on my power list. And even if you look at my calendar for the entire week, the second half of every Friday from 3 p.m. down to the end of the day, whenever I usually stop working, is specifically for building relationships. So I don't take any calls after 3 p.m. Friday. I don't do any additional work. I literally block off that time to message the men in my life, to thank them for being in my life, to pour love and encouragement into the men in my life. And I think the results speak very, very heavily in my life when you look at the men that I'm surrounded with. So something that you guys can definitely consider putting on your power lists, something that you should prioritize as much as you prioritize your own training, as much as your own nutrition, because those, you are going to default to the average of the men in those room, right? There's an interesting study. I can't remember exactly where I heard it, but it was something like, if you took your 5 closest friends, which there's a million quotes on this, but this one was really interesting. If you took your 5 closest friends, your net worth is probably somewhere between the average of like just all 5 friends across the board. I thought that was really, really interesting. So prioritize those male relationships, seek other people out in your communities, whether that's locally or in this group. And it can be as simple as sending them a 10-second voice message saying, dude, Drew, you looked freaking amazing on that group call. Dude, you're crushing it. You're losing that weight. Love to see it. You're inspiring me. It can be something as simple as that, that builds that connection and has him kind of move into your closer inner circle. Does that make sense, y'all? Heck yeah. Drew, what is your experience with this male accountability and how it's kind of increased in your life?
Yeah, I think it's a huge thing because that's, as everyone knows, years ago I had lost a lot of weight before and, kind of, gained it all back plus some. And I didn't have any of that, I think I was listening to actually Jeremy's podcast, and
Mhm.
one of the things that either him or Brittany had said, but it was, if you're the smartest person in the room or the most successful person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Mhm.
So it's I think it's a really good thing, a good point to, not just settle for your, current group, expand that network, expand those
Mhm.
inputs that are coming into you. I think it's going to be, it's huge to have that and to have individuals you can go to, whether it's just for, like you said, a bit of encouragement or, advice or whatever it may be. But I think that's a huge thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, dude. I think that's a great point, right? Like if you are the smartest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room. And I think that there's multi layers to that, right? Because sometimes you're going to be in a room where you are the smartest in like one field, and that's
Mhm.
fantastic. But if you look at like that cruise, right? Like there are multiple experts in different fields, and everybody can learn from each other.
Yep.
So I think that's something to consider too, is that you want to surround yourself with people who are really good at things that you're not really good at, right? Men
Mhm.
who can complement you. That's probably one of the cornerstones of business partnership, which is probably one of the most, intense male relationships that exists on planet Earth, is business partnership. And what they teach us is that if you have a partner, you want them to bring something to the table that you can't bring yourself. You want them to have a unique either skill set or unique resources like money that you don't have, maybe,
Mhm.
or something else that you can't bring yourself. And that in itself will kind of create that great partnership where you guys are both pulling each other up. The other thing I'll say about this is that if you're looking at your current male circle and you're like, shoot, man, like the guys around me, they're not that like much of killers, right? They don't really push me up. I'm kind of the one always leading the pack. Look at that as a challenge to yourself to see if you're capable of inspiring and leading the men around you. Because that's where the iron sharpening iron comes in, where if you are good enough to sharpen the men around you, they by default are going to get better and become those high level men that you're able to surround yourself with, right? So it's not necessarily about ditching all your friends and just finding new ones. It may be about you having to lead in that circle of men that you have and seeing them rise up with you, right? Because I know sometimes that can be very frustrating, very discouraging for people. It's like, I don't have those men in my life. That's kind of why I'm the freaking group, Gabe. But maybe it is your calling to lead those men, right? Jeffrey, how would you rate like your circle of men that you have in your life that you keep that keep you accountable?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot. So I have some really close friends, and I mean things are pretty light. Like we're all, and most people are like fairly successful engineers, but we don't talk a lot about driving each other to be better.
Mhm.
And that's something that definitely I'm kind of looking more of. In fact, I went out with friends this weekend. I had a friend in town who is sort of at the end of his career, and he's a PhD physicist,
Yeah.
and you know, expert bicycle racer. He's just kind of a phenomenal human being, but he's also like our conversations were really pretty dry about like you know partying or something like that, and
Yeah.
so
Or the game or
yeah,
whatever, right?
yeah, yeah, and so I don't know. It is something I'm kind of looking more of, but
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I think when I mean I've encountered that situation so many times, right? Where you're just trying to like break through to somebody because you know they have so much capability and you can see them becoming better for themselves. You want to help them. Plus, if you have them in your circle and they're encouraging you, like, dude, that's what an amazing relationship to have. And I think if you prioritize leveraging this group, because in this group that this is a safe space for you to be vulnerable and talk about these things. This group, and especially this call, is going to be an opportunity for you to practice having those discussions more often, right? So it's going to
yeah,
be less familiar. It's going to be more familiar to you, and you're going to develop the skill of doing it effectively. So anytime you're on one of these calls, maybe make it a priority to talk about something in your life that you've been working on, right? To chime in, to answer and ask questions, just so you practice that skill and you release that unfamiliarity of having those deeper, more impactful conversations. Um, so that you can take it to your friend who might need this and might benefit you in having this, and it doesn't feel as weird or as awkward. Right? You can do it with more
yeah.
certainty. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea of being able to, maybe look for an opportunity to lead and
Mhm.
start the conversations. Because I know I have friends who are working on getting better at stuff. We don't bounce it off and encourage each other enough. And I think that's probably important, is
Yeah.
as important or more important. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think
good
so.
point.
Totally. It's so interesting. Like I would love, this is why I'm so passionate about all the in-person stuff we're doing too, because like you can ask Drew, you can ask Vinny, um, the way that myself and Joey and Matt and Jack speak about things together, it is almost always at that level of depth, right? Like every conversation can go deep pretty quickly. And I think one of the unique reasons for that is that each of us just has the reps in doing it, right? Like I lead these calls every single week alongside Joey. I have these conversations one on one with people all the freaking time. It's just natural to me. So the moment I see my friend, it doesn't like there is no how was the game or did you watch the game, right? It was how's your week going? And they bring up one challenge and we immediately dive into that. And next thing you know, we're having an Iron Sharpens Iron call just on a casual Tuesday, on the couch for 15 minutes. But use these safe spaces, use these communities just to practice so that it feels more familiar to you. Heck yeah. Love that, man. Love that. I'm excited to hear about how that progresses. And I'm excited to just kind of review that on this week's call, see how they respond, see things you can do better to kind of, lead your friends in that way. It's gonna be great.
Can I add to that, Gabe?
Yeah, please do.
I think it's interesting too, like, and kind of like tinfoil hat moment, but like I feel like society wants men like isolated. They want you attached to your TV, attached to your phone, playing video games all night. Work your 9 to 5, go home, be with the family, which is great, right? You need to be with your family, but like where's the brotherhood, where's the camaraderie, right? No one talks to their neighbors anymore, right? Like their next door neighbors, their apartment neighbors, right? Like no one builds connections. If you don't know sports, what's there to talk about with your coworkers, these days, right? Like what's the water cooler talk, right? I think that's all. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but I think there's a purpose behind it, right? Like men isolated are weaker naturally, right? We're easier to subdue, like easier to submit, easier to fall into the status quo, right? And so that's a big reason I've always want to get involved. That Joey asked me when I applied for this community manager position, like, why do you want to do this? Like, your full-time job, right? You do your own fitness coaching. It's like, I want to get to know like you and Gabe. Like, you guys are really good at what you do, and I want to be around you guys. Like, it's like I don't care that much about the money. It's an amazing opportunity to network and learn from you guys. And so like that right there, it's exhibit A of why brotherhood and networking is so important. But I think like you guys being here and being in this community and building your own like real life brotherhoods and engaging in default kings, that's people look at it as weird. It's weird to do the opposite, right? It's weird to isolate yourself, have no friends, not develop those skills, like not talk about business, not talk about how to grow, right? Like who freaking cares about? I mean, I love sports, right? But like NFL doesn't pay my bills, NBA doesn't pay my bills. They're not going to retire me, right? Like you have so many skills to offer and such a wealth of knowledge, and so do your friends, and you're doing each other a disservice by like not exchanging those ideas and not holding one another accountable. So
Yeah.
That's why DK is so powerful, right? It's like the best online community already, but with the extension of the the real life events, I need to get out there. I don't think I come to Florida, but I definitely want to do the next one. But I mean, it's an amazing opportunity we have in front of us for like such a low investment. So,
Dude, first off, freaking elite rant, love it, dude. So many valley bombs there, dude. But like that passion like shows how important this stuff is, right? Like Jacob is so freaking intentional about this, which is why he's surrounded by other amazing, successful men who push him and encourage him, right? And I think that like as you guys are working through this, developing those male relationships in your life, have the awareness that the conversations, like this is something I throw around all the time with the guys, like the conversation that we have here, definitely out of the ordinary, right? Like most men don't have these level of conversations, and expect to be met with a little bit of resistance when you try to initiate these conversations with the men in your life who have never had them, right? Expect them to make jokes like men do, like we use comedy to, nullify any situation that even shows a hint of emotional vulnerability, right? Expect them to make the jokes, expect them to try to change the subject. But I think one of the best things you can do, one of the best pieces of advice that I got when it came to having deep, impactful conversations was never let any moment be too big. Never let any moment be too big. What that means is we've all had these moments where we're either talking with or sitting with one other man, right? Drew, I know you had this with your brother recently, or maybe we're in a group of men and we feel like something needs to be said or addressed, but we don't say it, right? We keep it bottled in. We think it's going to be awkward. We don't want to offend anyone. We don't want to piss anyone off. We don't want to be confrontational. But I think that if you act in courage and you say whatever God is putting on your heart in that moment, then you can have a much bigger impact. And so that's where the idea of never let any moment be too big comes in. If you have the feeling that something needs to be said, say it every single time. If you have that feeling, right? So that could be something as simple as asking your friend another question once he brushes off the first one, like, how's your day going? He's like, oh, living the dream. Classic. Like, really, dude, like, how was your day? How's your week going? How are your kids? Oh, those rascals, I don't know what to do with them. No, but like, seriously, like, how are they? Like, are they healthy? Are they happy? Like, what's going on? Right. Don't let those moments of resistance shoot you down. Don't let any of those moments, be too big for you. Step up and double down on them. And sometimes it's just that doubling down and that eye contact and maybe touching your friend on the shoulder that just gives them the permission to open up to you, because they see that you really mean that question, that you really take it seriously, and that you're offering them a safe space to let out the thing that they're not telling anyone. Right. So never let any moment be too big. When you feel those moments, when you feel called to have those conversations, grab your own nutsack and have them. Does that make sense, guys?
yes, sir.
Beautiful, beautiful. David, I'm curious to hear what you feel like. How would you rate, your male relationships in your life, in your circle of accountability?
Oh, there is none. And I think that's, like you touched on, like that's what these calls are for me.
Mm-hmm.
And as you guys were talking about it, it also got me thinking, like, this is also helping me have the conversations with my son. so that he is able to have those conversations as he grows. Because I never had these types of conversations with my father.
Right.
And like, he was a good dad, but that's just, some of it is like, that's, you just didn't talk about this stuff.
Right.
Like, you know, as Jacob, as you're talking about, like, you know, I got 4 really close high school friends. You know, and now we're at the level where we check on each other, but it's mainly because our parents are at the age where they're all sick and like they're struggling, like they're going through that stuff, right? So like, one lost his mother a couple years ago. I lost my dad 2 years ago. So it's like we're at a couple different stages like that. So like, but that's just the level of the conversation we get to. Like even when we've gotten together, there's like one of them I can get a little deeper with, but it's not. It's not to the point where we can really share deeply.
I
And
think
it
you have
is
a
all
great
about,
opportunity, you know, like
well,
you could initiate, right? Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you,
well,
but like,
yeah, yes, but it doesn't go anywhere because the whole relationship has been based on, um, you know, growing up together. So we have all this history of how we've interacted, and it's also based on the fact that now we're all in, you know, we're in 4 different states, but it's our Philadelphia fanaticism about Philadelphia sports teams. Like that's what, and that's like what all of our
relationship,
like all of our text threads are like bitching about the Sixers coach, or but we also follow like our kids' successes. Like the one, his son just won like a doubles, the league doubles title or whatever in tennis, and so like we're following with that, but that's as deep as it gets, and the other ones don't seem to want to engage. So you know, Jacob, to your point, like you can try, but there has to be a give and take, right? And like, you know, Gabe, you really put like, there are times when things that are said or written and you come across it and it means nothing. Then there are other times when people write or say something and you hear it and maybe you've heard it or read it multiple times, but you're in a certain mindset that now it's when it hits. So like you happen to hit something, you know, for me today, because it's exactly what I've been struggling. Like, yes, I've been following nutrition, I've been working out, but that's it. I haven't been putting in the hard mental work. Right. And like, you know, I've reached out to the group and I got overwhelmed with stuff. And when what happens to me, I wind up shutting down.
Right.
And I wasn't going into Slack as much. Like, and I finally put something in there, like, how do you guys all do it? Like there was something, in fact, you know, I'm glad Vinny's on the call. Like there was something that Vinny said about like, you know, it's going back to your power list and just working from that, kind of not starting over, but like get back to basics. And it's like, yeah, that's what I need to do. So sorry, again, another ramble. I don't even know what the hell I started talking about, but yeah, I mean, that's what these calls are, I think are best for me, because we moved out here 5 or 6 years ago. I work with some, when we transferred out here, some of us, we moved out here together, and like, I don't even work for that company anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't have that. That's what this is.
Yeah.
Like that's what this group is for me.
Right. Man, Dave, I'm hearing a lot there, and it sounds like you obviously have this outlet here, which is amazing. Like, guys, all of this being said, like the goal of this group is for this to be, I want this to be the best men's accountability circle that you have in your life. That's my goal. But I also want you guys to build that in your own personal lives, because I don't know if you guys are going to be here for every single day until you die. And I think this is necessary for every single day until you're on your deathbed. But from what I'm hearing is that a lot of times you try to have these conversations and it gets difficult because you don't get that reciprocity back from the individual. Right. And something that I definitely experienced through my childhood with my father, which I thank him for greatly, was that he had a lot of deep conversations with me every single day, all the time. Right. Which is probably one of the reasons why I'm so well versed at being able to do this. is because I was raised where if my dad came home and we did talk, especially at a young age, like he would talk with me. He would talk about how my relationships and friendships are going. He would ask me about my faith. We would pray together. Like we got deep often. And so I worked out that muscle often. But what I noticed is that as I got older and I lost trust with my father, I stopped being receptive to those deep conversations. Okay. I stopped being receptive to those deep conversations. And the reason I stopped being receptive to those deep conversations was because I didn't trust him. It was him. And when you don't trust someone, you have these emotional walls up because you feel like if you say something, they're not going to approve of you in some way, shape, or form. Right. And I already felt like my dad didn't approve of me because he was sacrificing his health and he must have not loved me. That was my thought process. Anyway, when it comes to being able to get other people in general, men in your life, to be receptive to these deep conversations, they need to be able to trust and respect you first. Okay. If they don't trust and respect you first, that will not be a safe space. And they will have their emotional walls up. Okay. One of the easiest ways, or the two required ways to get somebody to truly trust you is, number one, for them to view you as somebody who is respectable. So that's working on yourself. That's doing this deep internal work. That's doing the mental work. That's improving your body. That's improving your health. The other way is for them to have shared values with you. Okay. The other way is for them to have shared values with you. Like if you sit at the dinner table with somebody who you know who they voted for, and it wasn't who you voted for, how likely are you to really share your opinion on some political issue? Like your real opinion? Probably not that likely, right? Because you know they have different values. You know that they're not going to approve of what you're saying. And so you're going to keep that very deep within, right? Classic human nature. But when you're in a room with guys who you know think the same way as you, and you know history started on July 4th, 1776, we can say anything, right? We will say anything. We'll say how we truly feel. It's because we have the same values, and we know that if I say something and we have the same values, nobody here is going to disapprove of that, or me, because I have that opinion. We say quite a lot. We say literally anything. Drew hung out with Joey and I for like a week. He heard everything. Yeah.
It's in the vault. It's in the vault.
It's in the vault. It happens on the boat, stays on the boat. But do you guys see the point I'm making? They have to trust you if they're going to open up to you. And in order for them to trust you, they need to know that you can trust yourself, that you're somebody they can respect, and then you know you have similar values. So a really great way to just start initiating the practice of being open with your friends who you haven't been open with yet is by talking about values that you know you have in common. Just start with those as the topic of discussion, right? It could be something as simple as, you know, your political opinion on XYZ issue, right? Whatever that may be. And having that bonding over that and having that trust be built over the thing that makes you guys feel like, hey, like, you know, we're the guys who are together, or we trust each other. You know, it's kind of us against them type of thing. Although I don't suggest obsessing over politics, being open about your political views is like one of the layups when it comes to building a trusting relationship with somebody, because that's very divisive in certain relationships, right? You're definitely not going to share your political opinion with somebody who you don't trust. That's not going to happen. So that's a layup for you guys, right? Talk about your view on the world, talk about your view on a political issue, and start to build that trust where they know, like, this is somebody who has my back. Somebody's not going to judge me for what I think. Start to have some more of those conversations. The other thing I'll say is this is another tactical tip on having deep conversations, building those trusting relationships is it always pays to go first in these conversations. It always pays to go first. So let's say that you're trying to kind of get to the bottom of something that one of your friends is struggling with because you want to serve them, you want to help them, you want to lead them, you want to sharpen them, but they're not really reciprocating that openness. They're resisting that conversation. They're joking about it, right? If you start by being vulnerable yourself, they will automatically see that it's a safe space for them to be vulnerable too. Okay. So a lot of the times when I'm having these conversations, and a lot of you guys, I believe, when you signed up, you had the first conversation with me. I know Drew for a fact, Jeffrey for a fact, Vinny for a fact. There's moments in those conversations where if I'm trying to figure out like what's the deeper reason why this is important to you, a lot of times I'll just share a story if I'm not kind of getting the depth that I think I need. Right. So I'm talking to a man and I'm like, why is it important to you to lose this weight? Like, what's kind of the motivation? And they're like, just trying to lose weight, trying to look better for the summer, Gabe. Like, okay, whatever. I pretty commonly default to a story like, yeah, I get that, man. That's exactly what my dad was saying. But then he realized that it was really this, and it was really this, and it was really that. And that was really hard for me. So if you're vulnerable first, a lot of people will feel safe being vulnerable with you. The response that I get to a story like that, almost always in a conversation, is, man, like, I really feel that because I'm going through something similar. They relate to you on that vulnerable level. And all of a sudden you brought it down to a deeper level, a more impactful level, because you went first, right? You brought it there. You gave them the permission and you gave them the communication that made them feel safe enough to have that conversation with you. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Drew, I know you probably did this with your brother, right?
Yeah, more recently, it's kind of within the last couple months. But yeah, with him going through a lot of stuff in his life and me having a lot of changes in mine, it was always very surface level, just texting, how's it going, that type of thing. And yeah, now at least a couple times a week we have, good phone conversations. And, when we're together, we make time to actually go out and talk and stuff as opposed to just very surface level, which, because I know exactly what Jeffrey and David are talking about. Because that's my group of friends too. We've been friends since my main group of friends, like 4, 5, 6 years old. We all met, and
wow.
yeah, so it's like 30 plus years, and the conversations never go deeper than very basic stuff, and it's kind of crazy. I commented to Matt Moore when we were in Nashville. It's like I had a deeper conversation with Matt within like 5 minutes of meeting him than I've had with like any of my friends for years and years and years. So yeah, it is definitely a muscle that has to be built, and you can tell when someone has that muscle.
Yeah.
By
Especially
the
now,
questions they ask.
Right. You being around so many men like that, like, it's going to be night and day. You're going to be so aware of that. Have you like tried to deliberately, other than your brother, like just with your friend group, have you tried to deliberately build those deeper relationships, those much trusting relationships?
Yeah, a couple of them I've tried having deeper conversations. One, if he's drinking, he'll he'll have a little bit of a deeper conversation. The other one tends to, he's kind of in a bad mind space because he recently divorced, dealing with a kid he doesn't get to see as often as he wants. So that he's got a lot going on, and I feel like I can help him. Just obviously I haven't gone through that, but help him when it comes to mindset and stuff. So I've been trying there for sure, and every so often he does let me in a little bit more. But it's something I'm trying. Haven't been totally successful yet, but
does he know about your brother who's recently divorced?
Oh yeah. That's where I'm coming from. So I typically will bring up him and like try to steer it back. But yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a really great place to start, because he's going to feel that you understand the situation when you demonstrate that you understand the situation, even if it's not your own.
Yeah.
Right. So sure. I would definitely continue leaning on that. And throw in also your own personal vulnerability, right? Like, it doesn't even have to be the same exact situation, but you can talk about your own relationships with women, your own journey through that. Because if he sees that you're being honest and upfront with him, being vulnerable with him, like, that's going to open his heart way more to that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that vulnerability is so key to building trusting relationships in humans. And I think that's demonstrated in so many ways in sales conversations, right? With people signing up and conversations with friends. I think it's also demonstrated with Jesus on the cross, right? Like, think about the ultimate form of vulnerability, him being the Son of the living God and still saying, like, here I am, like, take me, crucify me, right? Torture me. Like, think about that level of intentionally being vulnerable to build that trusting human relationship, right? I think that was the vulnerability aspect of Jesus coming down to earth itself, was one of the main goals, right? So we weren't looking at this God who we couldn't relate to, who was going to smite us at the sign of any acknowledgement of our sins. But once we saw that he was human flesh and blood, and that he was just like one of us, and that our God bleeds, now we all of a sudden start acknowledging our sins, right? Like, and asking for forgiveness for them. How amazing is that? So, think about that, guys. Vulnerability is one of the keys when it comes to building these trusting relationships. And a lot of times you got to go first, right? A lot of times you have to go first. So I think that's a very, very solid wrap on kind of the three main things here that we're talking about, right? Three commonalities I've seen for people who really succeed long term. We talked about before, David, you joined, your self-identity. You have to stay focused on that, and it has to keep improving. Okay. At a certain point, you're going to go from digging yourself out of a hole to wanting to progress to further levels. You need to update that self-identity, right? Second thing was maintain a structure for your workouts and nutrition. A lot of things that you do at a higher level are beyond the point of just being healthier. So it goes against your intuition, and you need a game plan to follow. And then the accountability of men in your life is fundamental, right? That has to be increased. And we can start to have a lot more conversations with you guys about the actual skill of building those relationships with other men, because I think that's something that's vitally important. And if we can give you any of the secrets that we've used to not just build relationships with each and every one of you that's present on this call, but all the other awesome men in our lives, if that can expedite the process for you, then that's going to be a huge win. So yeah, Vinny, what's up, man? I just turned on the camera. Got any feedback for us, or just saying, hey?
What's up? Yeah, I was driving, but just wanted to say hey, and this is a really good call, and can relate to a lot of what was said. Like David, like I probably realistically in real life, there's 3 people I can think of who I can like have these kind of conversations with, and the rest I'm trying to pull them out, but they're pretty deep. It's all sports ball, and the sports betting thing now on the phones is a epidemic in its infancy, and like, yeah, it's tough to find like-minded people for sure. But I am excited. The race I'm doing is actually with, I guess, 2 of the guys I would consider on the right path here, who like we're gonna have great conversations. We're gonna push each other. That's why they're doing an Ironman race, I guess, and the rest are sitting on the couch.
Yeah. Dude, I love that you bring that up, Vinny, by the way. I know you're just saying, hey, but you're just dropping more value bumps. So I want to point out something great that you're doing. One of the easiest ways to increase the quality of men in your life is to increase the difficulty of the activities that you participate in. Okay. Vinny over here is doing a freaking half Ironman. I haven't even done a half Ironman. That's a hard, very difficult physical task. And it takes a very disciplined individual to complete that task. It takes a very courageous individual just to attempt to complete that task. Every single human being who's going to be present on the day of that race for that half Ironman is going to be a sharp individual, a mentally strong individual, right? So if you guys get involved in more physically demanding physical challenges, you're going to just be surrounded by more amazing men. You're going to be more surrounded by more mentally strong men like freaking Drew. Like, think about the quality of men that were on that 10K run with us. We ran this impromptu 10K when we were on the boat in Croatia. It was Drew, me, in terms of the men, Joey, Jeremy Newsom, and Matt DeLong, like 2 men worth hundreds of millions of dollars combined who run this amazing company and impact lives and change the world. That was the group of five men out there doing that run. When you increase the difficulty of the tasks that you participate in, you increase the quality of the men who are in your life, right? What a room. So take on these physical challenges, do these hard physical challenges, find other men that are willing to do these things. And you'll probably surround yourself with some sharper men like Vinny is finding with his Ironman. Freaking legend, Vinny.
I'm here right now. After this, hopping in the reservoir up there, get a little swim in Monday night.
Monday night swim. Let's go.
Reservoir.
Love it, man.
How's that water? Is it pretty cold?
It's cold. I got my wetsuit in the back, but
Nice.
once you get going, like I don't feel it really. Like you're working, so it's like when you start running and it's cold, like you stop really feeling it.
Vinny, when we were on the boat, we were jumping into the ocean every time we had like kind of a swim stop, and people were talking about how the water's cold. Probably was like really cold, but I was like, how are you guys thinking about the water? Like, I'm freaking scared. I'm in the middle of the ocean. I'm just trying to survive out here. The water temp is the
Sharks.
last thing on my mind.
It was freezing.
Yeah, I'm glad the race I'm doing is in a reservoir or like a lake. Because originally the one in Florida, that one was in the ocean, and I actually was talking to a guy here last week who said he did the same one. It was in Panama City,
Mhm.
and you're swimming and you look down and there are sharks underneath you. Like I was like, like I would be out of there very fast.
So I think it's hilarious how we're talking about this. And I just kind of made a little joke about how I would never do that. But this is a social commitment. I'm going to give a huge range time for me to complete this. At some point in the next
30 years.
some point in the next, I'll do it before I'm 40. At some point in the next 17 years, I will complete an Ironman. I know I can't do it physically, but I actually have a genuine fear of water. Like not water, of what is in water. I think that comes from being raised in Florida and like you're just conditioned to have low levels of anxiety when you're walking near any body of water because a gator can snatch you up. But like when I look in water, like in any natural body of water, I'm like, oh, I lose my shit. Like that's a fear. So I just want to conquer the fear of like swimming in the ocean or something. So social pre-commitment, 17 years within that time period.
Putting that in my calendar. I'm gonna send you a message in 2040.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Holding you to it.
Oh man, 17 years down the road, I'm just gonna get like 5 messages. Oh, all right, boys. Awesome chat. Appreciate you guys all being here. Thank you guys for being here for each other. Since we're all working through this skill together, this is such a great space to be able to develop it. And challenge everybody here to go out into the circles of men in your personal lives outside of this group and implement what we talked about today and come back next week with some positive reports. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Let's go. All right, guys. Have a great evening. Love y'all.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.
Okay.